It's me, Vera, here to remind you that this is an adult podcast. That means we're going to deal with tough topics. Take a break if you need it, and be kind to yourself, because we sure won't be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stitch of Fate, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition podcast. As always, I am your storyteller, Mike Martin, joined by my four players, Josh, Bub, Mark, and Dot. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hope everybody's doing well. I'm excited. We left off on a hell of a scene on last episode. Things have taken a twist that even I, when I was pitched this idea via Discord by Josh, was not quite prepared for. But that's why I love this game, and that's why it's so fun.
I love how Vera was like, nobody would be brave enough to look behind to even consider that. And it had to be Sean that was like, I am.
He's like,
I'm a big enough dumbass to do it.
I think that has put the bat among the pigeons.
Well, I'm excited to continue to see where this all leads. So before we get going, as always, an enormous thank you to everybody who is supporting us over on Patreon. We couldn't do this show without you. We wouldn't be doing a few one-offs after this season comes to its close very soon for everybody to look forward to. And we wouldn't be able to keep doing this without you guys anyway. And for those who can't, being able to just drop a review or sharing the show with those who might listen, that's also huge, and in some ways even better than being able to directly financially support us, as that allows us to grow and reach new ears. That's my typical shill, so I hope everybody is ready for moving into the episode. So let's bring things down, rein it in, and see what our coterie is up to. The scene picks up with a rippling in of existence, a familiar bat-like man becoming immediately apparent to a small-statured, pacing quickly, Stinky, up in the attic. She's surrounded by boxes and dusty clothes hanging on varying different racks, and as Max ripples into existence and she quickly appears your way, giving you her attention, she stops pacing immediately and clearly gives all of her attention to you.
Hey there, Stinky. How you settling in?
She shuffles a bit, having only been up here for a few hours at this point, and before looking back to you after a few moments and nodding and quietly and meekly saying, I'm very thankful that I have a place that I can spend the day. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to wake up and keep my composure if I didn't eat.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I brought that Happy Meal cup for you, so if you want to fill up.
She, as you kind of immediately offer her your wrist, she actually brings her hands up and she shakes her head. No, you've already done so much. I'm much more under control now, I promise.
Okay. Well, I brought you a few more of them comic books if you want to do some reading, and Vera says you can help yourself to whatever clothes are up here.
As Max takes the comics books out and maybe plops them on a nearby crate, and they slide across about, I imagine you brought like 3 or 4 comics for her to choose from. You see her meander over and look down at the comics. Can I get a wit's insight from you as she peers down at the comics?
Straight up wits.
We love it. That's what we love about Max.
1 success.
She simply looks at the comics and then looks up back to you, and you can't tell if she seems interested or nonplussed about them. But she does say thank you after, but not really moving over toward the comics any further than that.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry I don't got any, Archie or Richie Rich or whatnot. I was mostly a superhero guy. But, let's see. Like I say, Vera says you want to grab some clothes, feel free. They're all yours.
She looks around and she actually for a moment seems to relax in a slight giggle as she looks at the clothes around. She goes, these things look more expensive than any money I've ever had in my life combined.
Yeah, they probably are. I mean, geez, look at the beadwork on that thing. All right, but
the camera focuses on this extraordinarily gorgeous, and some may even call it gaudy, outfit with all the beads along its sleeves and shoulders.
But help yourself to whatever you like. Vera says it's cool.
Are you sure? And then she, that relaxedness all of a sudden dissipates as the tense anxiety seems to immediately return. And she spins back to you, not looking at the clothes anymore. I don't want to owe Vera any favors.
Nah, she's not gonna ask for a boon for a pair of pants or whatnot. Don't worry about it.
She then kind of shuffles a little bit closer, bringing the tone of her voice down as though not to be heard. And she's like, that's not what Gustav told me about her kind. Incredibly obsessive.
Yeah, well, Vera and me, we got an understanding.
She leans back a bit, and you're not sure if she accepts that answer or not as she gazes upon the clothes. However, she does not respond to or say anything following that.
Listen, Stinky, I gotta ask you something. That name, Stinky, is that something you chose for yourself? Or something Gustav gave you?
She shakes her head immediately, and she's something Gustav said.
Well,
he laughed. It was a joke, and it kind of, how nicknames kind of stick.
Yeah. Well, is there something you'd prefer to be called?
Her gaze detaches from yours, and she stares off blankly for a few solid seconds before she almost catches herself, kind of disappearing into her own mind, and she shakes her head. No, I'm okay with Stinky for now.
Okay, well, you let me know, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Max. I don't, I never met anyone like us that's like you.
Yeah, no problem, kid.
Everyone I've ever bumped into just...
Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here, kid. Our kind and their kind and kindred and kind, they're all just people. And the kindred, well, they like to pretend there's something else. That's why they like to call the humans kind, right? But when you get down to it, they're just people. Sometimes very old, very powerful, maybe even very beautiful people. But they're just using that as an excuse to be assholes to other, younger, weaker people. That's how I see it.
Have you always saw it like that, though?
Yeah, well, there were a few years where my head wasn't exactly on straight, you know what I mean? I think you do.
Yeah. She chews on her bottom lip and subtly nods her head. Did you ever hate what you were?
Well, it kind of came on as a surprise, so yeah, I wasn't really pleased with it. I didn't ask for it. It was forced on me, and I spent a lot of years thinking about what I lost. But with age comes perspective, kid. You're gonna find that out for yourself when you're north of 100 like me.
That sounds so crazy.
Yeah. You know how they say time flies when you're having fun?
Yeah?
It kind of flies when you're fucking miserable, too.
Have you ever thought of just leaving?
What? The city?
All of it, I guess?
What, you mean pulling the plug?
No, just not caring about all this shit anymore.
All the time. But...
what keeps you here?
Well, this is my city. It was my city before I became this. This is my home. This is the only place I want to be. And sometimes you gotta deal with crap in your backyard that maybe you don't want to, but I mostly like to be left alone.
Yeah, me too.
Now then, you said you're good, right? You're not too hungry or nothing?
No, I'm good. And as she speaks, you can hear in her voice the change in tone from the last time you spoke with her when she was on the verge of losing it to her hunger to now, where there's much more composure.
Okay. Just to give you the heads up, we're thinking we might move you for a little bit. Like you said, Gustav knows where this place is. Maybe he don't quite know what's going on yet, but he might come looking. We thought we'd shuffle you around a little bit, just to confuse the issue. It's close by, though, this place we're gonna stash you. We just gotta get some ducks in a row, figure out if that's possible. But we're also gonna fix this place up for you on a little more permanent basis.
I don't know what I did to deserve this. Thank you.
It's all right, kid. Don't worry about it.
Before you head out, you asked me something not too long ago about what Gustav gave the prince.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
go on.
There's a ranch up north. Some sort of group of people. Gustav had heard word or found out, I don't know how. They're Sabbat, I think. They're planning on hitting the city. At least I think that's what Gustav was speaking about. He told the prince about them, their location. I don't know where they are, before you ask. Just upstate.
So, Gustav sold out the Sabbat to the prince. That don't surprise me too much. He always liked to play both sides of the fence.
And I think he heard about them from Larson.
Yeah, Gustav had his own brushes with the Sabbat over the years, but that's possible. I figure all three of them are mixed up in it somehow, but thank you. Hey, kid, thank you.
If he finds out I told you
He ain't gonna...
I need to leave the city, he won't let
he
me.
ain't gonna find out, Stinky. We're gonna keep you safe, all right?
She chews on her lip again and nods while looking down to the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
And without a wit's insight roll, you watch as she's clearly tense and nervous after saying what she said.
Don't worry about it, kid. Don't worry about it. Just, like I said, make yourself at home.
She sits in the nearest crate as you say so, and you can hear it kind of creak underneath her. And she begins to quickly fiddle with the comics that you put before her, kind of flipping between the four of them before hurriedly choosing one and trying to occupy herself with it.
And Max ripples out of existence for the trip downstairs.
And where does Max go afterward?
We probably follow him down the stairs, wondering what he's up to, wondering what new mission he's about to achieve, and we see him go into his room and start emptying Max Jr.'s litter box.
I love it. He's scooping some poop
Yeah.
for a little while and has
Opens a can of tuna, puts it down for Max Jr. Max Jr., of course, he still needs to eat food in addition to his blood feedings, yes?
Yeah, and he's gonna feed from a drop of your blood or something like that every couple days, or every once a month rather, or whatever it is.
Right. He probably has, some little tender victuals and things like that.
As you're kind of feeding Max Jr. and you can hear the litter being scooped, we see from inside of Max's room over by the doorway, Sean walking quickly by. Tonight's the night where the coterie is to discuss what to do or when to get Stinky over to the dance studio, as the night would have passed by and we would be on a new evening now. Duke and Vera would also be making their way to the blood room until the four of them are together. We're looking to who's going to be taking Stinky and when we wanted to do this. And also, and whether you were going to tell Kadir or not.
Vera's immediately, once we're all here, she goes, good, now I can say this out in the open. We should not tell Kadir yet.
No? I mean, that could go sideways real quick if he thinks we're setting...
Not about Stinky.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought you meant about the other thing, which is
Now,
yeah.
as for the, potential bait ploy, well, we have to let him in on that.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. I let our guest know that maybe she might have to be moving shortly, but I guess we better set that up in advance, not just show up with her.
Yes, I sent word with John to go see if I couldn't catch a minute of her time.
Sounds good. I'll come with yous.
So as soon as we hear from her, or we won't, we'll, well, we shall see.
Until then, when does Kadir come again, Mathis?
In a couple of nights now from now.
Okay.
You're a little under a week still, so we'll say he arrives every Friday, and it's a Wednesday.
Would it be more valuable for us to seek Kadir out firsthand?
Oh.
Waiting on him, I believe, sets some very interesting precedents and potentially pours us in an uneven and unsteady light. Let's be proactive, Sean.
Yeah, I'd love to find him and tell him I've set him up.
Also, this is, well, you can file this under pertinent information. I know what Gustav gave the prince as his gift.
For the first time in a decade, you see Vera's eyebrows raise. She turns and looks straight at Max. Really?
Yeah, Stinky knew. Listen, we gotta keep our source on this very close. But...
Of course.
Looks like Gustav sold out some pack of Sabat up north. They were gonna attack the city, apparently, and he informed the prince. I don't know. I am assuming the prince acted on that information, and that bunch of Sabat ain't really anybody's problem anymore. But that wasn't clear. Also, up north, but I don't exactly know where.
Interesting. So, Gustav sells out this Sabat cell to the prince. What does he get in return?
That's the question, right?
His reputation in the Camarilla.
I assume he's done enough dodgy stuff that he's on the knife's edge with the cam all the time, right?
Interesting.
Vera appears lost in thought for a moment.
Then why?
What's the value in him rolling, if you will, on the Sabad at this moment? What would he gain from this?
That's the thing. I don't think he gained anything from the prince of great note. He could have gotten his way into the Camarilla years ago if he wanted it. Why now? What is the difference? It's Larson. How are they connected? They were working together. We can pretty much assure that, yes? He set us up.
Yeah, Stinky seemed to think that Larson was the one that tipped him off.
Well, I'm going to meet with him real soon. I could ask.
Probably not a great idea to let him know that we know.
Right.
Now, how does the nature of this gift fit into your little gossip scheme there, Vera? Does this work out for us? Is there an angle that we can play on this, or...?
I don't see why not. It is a bold move. We know that Prince Panhard has a history with the Sabbat, but she is well regarded nonetheless.
Is Gustav known as a Sabbat conspirator?
Well, like I said, he always skirted it. Never enough to actually bring down the cam on his head like a hammer, you know?
Yes.
He was smart that way for sure, but yeah, I saw some shady shit.
This might paint the scenario in a very different light, and will also likely make the prince rather unhappy if anything is stated about their particular relationship.
I'm going to be honest with all of you. I don't really care how the prince feels at the moment, considering the fact that we are bricking her up downstairs and attempting very hard to assure that she wakes up. So how she feels at the moment is moot, in my opinion. That being said, turning this into something that can be used, that we can do. Her reputation may suffer, but I survived.
Fair enough. I'm sure she'll see it that way too. But what's our next move? What's the play?
I think Duke's right. Duke, you and Kadir seem to have a little bromance happening the last time he was here. Go see him at the Ivory Tower.
I'd like to take Sean with me. This is value for him specifically.
Sean loves going to the Ivory Tower, don't you, Sean?
It's my favorite place.
Don't worry. I'll yield an awning for you. I turn most people's stomachs. It's not uncommon for kindred alike. If you can stand and tolerate my existence, I'm sure that they will be all eyes upon me.
I've done just over 10 years of that now. I'll be alright.
Well, maybe Max and I will see what we can do for Stinky while you're away.
And we'll see you soon. We'll report back in the moment that we speak to Kadir.
And the coterie disperses. As the camera fades out, now a few hours pass. We're actually upstairs in Vera's room. Max is usually allowed up in your room as well, I imagine, right? One of the few who has that permission. And as there's preparations being made, and John has actually recently returned, saying that she's willing to take a meeting with the whomever you wish to send on this night or tomorrow night, to your earliest convenience. We see Max ripple into existence in this room as Vera is standing. What would Vera be doing in her room?
All the lights are out, except for one that's behind the dressing curtain so you can see the silhouette of the prince. And Vera's sitting there smoking a cigar, puffing away in the dark.
And with one big puff as you blow it toward the door, you watch as the smoke actually ripples across Max's body as he comes into existence through the smoke.
And as he ripples into existence, he lights a cigarette.
We watch as a cigarette butt is lit, a drag is taken, and Max mixes his smoke with hers.
Oh, Max. Is she all right?
Yeah, I think she's a little nervous and agitated, but that's to be expected. Maybe we just need to bring her with, tonight?
I'm hoping that Stinky may pull at her heartstrings a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pop upstairs and collect her. We'll meet you downstairs and go out through the back.
I'd like to meet her, Stinky.
Sure, she's upstairs. You want to come with?
Do you think she'd mind?
I don't think she would. I'll go in first and ask her.
Okay. I'll wait downstairs. How about that? Give her some space.
Sure. Max pops upstairs to Stinky.
The camera hard cuts to the attic. We'll see Max stepping in. Stinky perks up. She's flipping through. What magazines? What comics did you grab for Stinky out of curiosity? What would you have? I imagine Max would have put some thought into that.
Yeah, the Wiz Comics #2, the first appearance of Captain Marvel, or Shazam, as currently known.
Ooh. That is what she's flipping through then.
Hey, Stinky. Listen. Vera just wanted to have a word, if that's okay.
She quickly closes the comic and throws it on the nearby crate, and she stands up. Yeah. This is her place.
Yeah, that other place we told you about, the one we're just gonna shuffle you over to for a little bit. We gotta meet with the proprietor, so to speak.
Okay.
But I'll bring Vera first for a word.
Yeah. And she just kind of, you see her straightening out her clothes and like almost kind of preparing for what was like a big old business meeting or something.
Is she currently in her sort of nondescript?
Yeah, she did not take any of the clothes. Yeah, she did not take any of the clothes, and she's in her full Nosferatu look. Yeah, she's not hiding her, her appearance.
She's not cloaked. Okay. So Max goes down, grabs Vera, brings her back up to the attic.
Vera, as you enter the attic, having meeting Stinky for the first time completely uncloaked, you can actually smell the pungent odor before you even cross the border into the attic itself. And as you climb your way in, it merely becomes more and more intense if Vera was to breathe at all.
I'd like to assure that she doesn't notice it bothers Vera, right?
And Vera simply doesn't breathe. Done.
That's right. She's just, Vera's not going to let it bother her.
Absolutely.
This is important.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I bet it's so awkward in these ballet shoes, like trying to get up here and...
As you make your way in, though, and you kind of climb up, what you see is a familiar visage. You're the first time you're seeing Stinky without her cloak on. You are looking at a Nosferatu that is in some ways extraordinarily familiar to Max, and in other ways very different. Her ears are way wider and go out much further, and her teeth are much more fanged across the board.
Vera takes off her hat, right? We both wear things to cover ourselves, so she removes her hat so that she can see who she is. And Vera sits.
As you sit down, she remains standing, and she actually speaks to you before you have a chance to say anything. Miss Vera Volkov, I want to say thank you for allowing me to stay here, even if just for a few hours. I just didn't know where else to go, so I am eternally grateful. And she does an awkward bow that seems unnatural.
Very sweet. Stinky, right?
She nods.
Okay. You can just call me Vera.
She nods again.
It's very kind of you, but this place has always been a place for those who needed a home.
That's really nice of you.
I guess it is more of a heartfelt duty, I guess you could say. That being said, for a little while you can't stay here. It's not necessarily safe for you or us.
Yeah.
So, I have a friend we're going to speak with. When was the last time you went to school, Stinky?
10 years ago, I think.
I'm going to guess you didn't finish.
She shakes her head.
It just so happens that my friend owns a school. She's a special kind of us.
What do you mean?
You may not have met one like her before. She's very unique, just like you and Max.
She looks over to Max and back to Vera.
I imagine that you would be safe there because nobody knows about this place. And you might get a chance to go to school with other children, even at a distance.
I have a question, if you don't mind me asking.
You don't have to ask permission.
Hey, we're all friends here, Stinky.
When Gustav wakes up, what do I do?
That is a very good question. One I don't know that I can answer.
Listen, you don't owe him nothing. Did he think about you when he went to ground? No. So, you're gonna do what you want, but take what he feels out of the equation.
I mean, if I abandon him, he's gonna try and kill me.
Well, it's a good thing now you have friends.
She seems to lose herself in thought.
I'm here because I want to make sure this is what you want to do. Would you like to go to this school?
Your words kind of bring her back pretty quickly, and she looks back to you. Yeah. I agree. I don't think being here would be good. He knows Max is here, and yeah.
I heard a little bird that somebody gave up a big secret of Gustav's.
I'm just trying to help. You help me. I'm trying to help you.
I wanted to say thank you because you did not have to do that. It's very brave. And it helped us out a lot.
I hope so.
Now that we are fair and square, would you like to go see this school with us?
Sure. And she shuffles her feet a little bit.
And of course, while you're there, I'll be dropping by every now and then to make sure that you don't get too hungry.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know what to say.
Then don't.
Okay. And she again
She
kind of
goes, you can smile.
She tries.
Do you smile?
Vera smiles too, and Vera doesn't smile well at all either, right? It looks very straight on Vera.
And hers is equally seemingly forced, however, for different reasons entirely. And Max is just watching these two ladies awkwardly smile at one another.
Okay, good talk. All right.
Did Stinky have any possessions besides the clothes on her back when she showed up?
She did not bring any possessions other than the clothes on her back on this particular
So there's no need
trip.
to round anything up.
No, however, if you bring it up, she does mention she has a haven that she does stay at. The reason she didn't go there, though, is because Gustav also kind of understands where that is.
Why don't you tell, if you don't mind, you can tell me. I can collect anything you might need. Or we go together.
She actually shakes her head at that, like nervously, like she'd rather not go. But she will give you directions to what is essentially a sewer tunnel somewhere underground in New York. That the instructions are not terribly complicated, but well complicated enough that it'd be hidden away from most mortal eyes. I don't have much there, but if, you see anything useful you can grab for me, my clothes.
Sure, yeah, give me a list.
And she gives you like a list of clothing and a couple of a laptop and some other not bizarre, but kind of just odds and ends that most would have at their sleeping place.
Max writes it all down in his little sketchbook. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right then. Let's get you over to the school, huh?
Now, the school is not that far, simply a few blocks away from the club. A small, short walk for the three of you, Maxwell and Stinky, both remaining entirely invisible for the trip. Vera, the only one the camera can actually see as they walk toward the school. It doesn't take long before you see the dance school in sight. Most of its lights are out, spare a few on the first floor. And as you make your way over to the double doors that swing open, Vera just gives a gentle rap on it. A few moments later, a young girl actually scurries over, maybe somewhere in her late teens or maybe early 20s. And she's got long, straight black hair and dark brown eyes with a petite smile, thin lips, as she opens the door and smiles at just Vera. Miss Vera Volkov, I hope?
The one and only.
She opens the door wide as you say so, and you are welcomed in. She looks back behind you to see if there's anyone else, long enough for the door to be open so that both Stinky and Max are able to make their way in. And as she confirms there is nobody else other than Vera, she shuts the door, and you hear the ch-ch of the lock. And she spins around. She's like, okay, this way, she's waiting for you. And she leads you through the dance halls, down to the basement stairs, and like many kindred, to her basement haven, it seems. There's you can see a steel door completely locked off in a corner. In the center of the basement, a large couch and mirrors that are stuck up against the concrete walls with a dance bar that is attached to all of the mirrors, a private small dance studio. And there, standing behind the couch, alone, as the only other person that joins them is this young girl, and Vera is the dance instructor. She has a white bandana completely tied around her forehead and pulled all the way back. She has a gentle look on her face that most might immediately not recognize, but interpret as disappointment. A persistent, disappointed mother look kind of hangs on her face as you walk in. And as the young girl walks over and whispers something into her ear, she nods, and the young girl leaves and heads back upstairs. A few tense moments between Vera and Vicky before Who would break the silence first? Would Vera wait? I'm curious.
Vera can't wait. You know she's got to take the opportunity to say something if she can.
How many seconds of silence does Vera allow then before she says
Well,
it?
if she's really looking down on Vera in this, like, you're talking about this, like, very
Yes, I don't want to say it's so much she's looking down at you disappointed on purpose. It's almost this perpetual look she's always had on her face.
Yes.
Resting disappointed face.
Yes,
Resting disappointed face.
She
Okay.
seems to have seen quite a lot.
Vera gets close enough to recognize it, and she says, "You know, I got out of a school just like this, with a woman that had a disappointing face just like yours, many decades ago.
And how good of a dancer did you end up, Vera?
Some would say the best, but then again, I'm dead, so maybe I wasn't so good."
The door to the room suddenly closes, and then Max ripples into view.
Hey there, Vicky, what's the rumpus?
As she snaps to attention, surprise, and then recognizes Max there, the face returns, and very shortly after Max appears, so does Stinky, following in suit of Max. And as Stinky ripples into existence, she gives a meek wave, and she makes her way behind Max and follows him.
This here is Stinky. Stinky, this is Vicky.
Good to meet you, Stinky. And Stinky just kind of gives a polite nod. What do I owe the pleasure of this meeting of the minds?
Our friend Stinky here is in need of a place to stay for a while.
I see. And your place is not safe enough. I saw the recent security the club has maintained. Up to your firepower quite a bit. Should we be expecting some volatile things happening nearby?
Well, it's more a case that there's a lot of eyes on our place, you know? So maybe Stinky needs a place to lie low.
She looks past you again to Stinky, allowing a gaze for a few seconds before looking back to Vera. Well, I won't say no. I am so generously allowed to stay within your territories.
Look, we don't interact much. I leave you to do whatever it is you do here in this educational facility.
I take care of my girls and nothing more.
Which is why I've brought you Stinky. I have a feeling that you'll make sure she stays safe for a while. And we will continue to assure this place stays off the radar.
If that's what's needed of her for her, then I can provide that.
So hostile. Well...
My apologies, that's the way you are hearing my words. I simply don't enjoy the context surrounding this, that's all.
Business is not supposed to taste good. This is business. And you know, if push came to shove, we would be here. I think I remember that the last time we removed a bomb from your chest.
She purses her lips incredibly tightly at that.
Look, Vicky, thank you, all right?
She nods again. You're welcome, Maxwell. I will take care of her. I hold no ill will toward you or her. I don't want this meeting to go in that sour direction. I just prefer to avoid Camarilla business as much as possible, as Camarilla business tends to end rather explosively.
We are trying very hard to keep the explosives to a minimum these days.
And listen, I'm gonna need to pop by to check in every once in a while.
She just gives you an immediate nod, and again, I am allowed by your good graces to stay here. You do what you need to. My doors are open to you. I simply just wish to know why, and I appreciate you informing me.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Vera closes the gap and gets close so that she could say something quiet so maybe Stinky won't hear it.
Sure, absolutely.
Not that it's bad, but it's sensitive, and like, he doesn't want to call her in front of. She goes, I was hoping she might be able to take some classes. Just let her stand in the back or have a desk that's always open, for late students or something.
Does she have an inkling of to dance?
Well, you teach something other than dance here, yes?
Yes, but it's the core of our school.
She is a bit of an outcast, like you. And Max is a good man. And he's helping her, and I want to help him.
And she chews on her cheek for a moment.
I want to give her a chance. And make her feel less unwanted.
As she intently listens to all of that, and as your sentence finishes, she looks to the ground and before looking back to you and continuing to speak again. Yeah, I mean, I won't prevent her. She's welcome to stay in any night class she wishes.
Thank you.
But I'm not going to force her.
No, please.
She then stands up straight and looks back to Max and Stinky. Well, Stinky, sit on the couch. You won't have anything to do for this evening, as the evening is rather late. If you're going to stay here, might as well make yourself comfortable. We'll give you official quarters come tomorrow. Stinky just kind of clears her throat. Okay, yeah, sure. And she walks over to the couch and kind of sits down on it, awkwardly looking kind of between the three of you. Vicky looks over to Vera, then back to Max. She'll be in good care, and how often should I expect you, or should I say, how often should I expect you, Max?
I guess in game terms, what sort of hunger is she at right now?
She's at a 2 hunger right now, and unless she, it just depends on her roles. Like a once-a-week visit may not be a bad idea, just to see if she's doing, fine. You don't imagine she's going to be using disciplines all that often to get her hunger high up there. It's just the morning rouse is what the real big risk.
You know what, Max, actually, it's like, yeah, I know you said you were okay, but you look a little peaked here, so... He gives her, again, he pulls like the dirty Happy Meal cup out of his coat, puts some blood into it, just says, just drink up.
As you actually do so, and you kind of cut your hand and ooze your vitae into the cup, Vicky looks astounded. Her eyes widen. She takes a step back.
Yeah,
I wasn't...
Yeah. The kid actually... No, it's a special case.
You understand the ramifications of feeding one of your own blood, right?
Yeah, but I'm not the kind of...
You understand it is frowned upon and even in some cases entirely illegal.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we can keep this between us, Vicky.
She looks to Vera. A bloodbound child?
It is the only way she can feed. And we did not make her this way.
She looks to her with a wits insight. You may both make me a wits insight as you kind of say this too. Meanwhile, Stinky takes hold of the cup, but she kind of stares awkwardly.
1 success.
Ah, Max, we love you.
3.
You got 3 successes. For Vera, there's a subtle look of disgust on her face as she learns of her issue with feeding.
Like I said, I want to make her feel welcome. So please.
Now I see why Max has to return every so often.
Yeah.
We're
I
just...
figured it was best to keep it out in the open between us, you know? Just so you can see there's no secrets here.
And how intense is her fondness of you at this point?
Look, I know what Gustav's been doing to her, and if I can help her out, fine. And I'm not the kind to exploit this, you know? She's gonna do what she wants.
I don't doubt your intentions necessarily, Max, at least not now. Fine. I don't want to ask any more questions. I will take care of her. I will expect your visits, Max, as needed. And Stinky, was it? Yes. You're welcome to stay here as long as there's needed and participate in any classes you find interest in. And you can see her clearly forcing a smile.
Vera smiles genuinely.
Now, if the two of you will leave, I need to prepare for my evening and make sure Stinky at least has a place to stay for the night.
Yes, thank you. Vera walks over to Max.
As you're walking over to Max, Vera, you see Stinky taking the cup and kind of awkwardly tilting it back and drinking.
I say this so Max and only Stinky can hear. Vera kind of leans over this couch and says, if she treats you with anything less than respect, I want you to tell us, okay?
When you say that, she actually looks to Max for confirmation.
Max nods.
As she nods, she then looks back to Vera.
This is not permanent, only temporary.
She then looks back to both of you, and she looks to Max, though, and says, thank you so much.
Vera gives him some space.
Yeah, and she just says thank you so much, but once again, Vicky kind of calls, like, please, I need my privacy. I'm not going to... And she waves the two of you to leave, and quickly kind of Stinky realizes that conversation is now at an end, and Max probably ripples out of existence invisibly after saying his goodbyes. Please.
Actually, he goes up to Vicky just before he goes, like,
Look, again, appreciate it.
She swallows hard but nods.
I know this ain't an ideal solution, but it was all I could think of.
Well, I promise you at the very least that I will take the best care of her I can.
and he disappears.
And so he ripples out. You see, she kind of stares blankly at that empty spot now for a few seconds before she nods, and under her breath she goes, I hate when they do that. And she just walks over to Stinky and places a hand on her shoulder. The camera watches that out of focus as Vera strides into focus, and the camera attaches to her as she strides up the stairs down the hall. And at the door, the young lady waits again, where she unlocks it, pushes the door open, and holds it wide for you to leave, and Maxwell to leave as well.
As soon as the door closes, you just hear Vera say, did you see that? She waved me out as if I was bothering her. Vera's now muttering to what looks like herself on the street as she paces back towards the club. But she's definitely letting Max in on the fact that it was like, how dare she?
The camera hangs by the school, however, as we watch the two of them walk off and Vera openly bitching. And the last thing we can hear is what Max says back in return.
Hey, take it easy, Vera. She's, the headmistress. She's used to ruling the roost in that place. So,
Yeah, that sort of trails off.
Yeah, and that all trails off and the camera slowly fades to black.
Oh, hi. It's me, Vera. While you're taking a break, take a moment to visit dieharddice.com. Die Hard Dice is a sponsor of this little podcast. They make what we do possible. During checkout, make sure to use the code STITCH-MAY, and you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. And we get a little cut for our own resources. Sounds like we only roll with the best.
Before it fades back in, this time to a less pleasant scene, something a little more unnerving and unsettling. A familiar house that we've seen Duke visit only a few times over the past few months is once again in view. A small one-family where a single man lives by himself. In the backyard, standing ominously amongst the trees, is a Duke in his white shirt, the only thing we can really see in the darkness. You've been standing here for a while, watching him move through his windows and living his night as he does. He's had dinner now, and he seems to be reading a book, lounging in a kitchen chair. When would Duke want to make a move in?
Before he becomes too comfortable, I think Duke would lead with a knock at the door.
So as the gentleman sits down to read, and he opens the book just as he's about to get comfortable, the camera makes its way in the window, and we watch as Luther sits in the chair and cracks a book. Before he can even get the first 2 words read, his concentration is immediately broken by a rhythmic knocking at the back door. A familiar one he would recognize after years of working with you. And we watch as he sighs, not in disappointment or relief, but one of bore of nerves and being caught off guard. He closes the book and slides it on the table before shuffling to his feet. He's in clearly pajama pants and a white t-shirt, wearing slippers that are well worn over the years, shuffling across the tile floor of his kitchen. He slides the curtain to the back door open to ensure that it is exactly who he expected, before you hear the inner door and deadbolt unlock, and the door creak open. He is wordless, however, and waits for you to speak first.
Good evening, Luther.
Evening, Mr. Bremond.
I was hoping to have a moment of your time.
He steps back and waves you in when you ask for a moment of his time, as he typically does, and a wave of heat hits as the kitchen door closes, and you can actually smell some sort of, maybe he was cooking a ham. He gestures over to a kitchen chair this time, not to his home office, as he sits at the kitchen across from you in the chair he was sitting in when he was reading the book. He pushes the book and the newspaper that he laid it upon off to the side. What do I owe the pleasure of such a late night visit tonight, Duke?
Thank you. I appreciate this. I was hoping to catch you in a leisurely state.
Makes an open gesture to himself.
Forgive me for the late appearances. There is some nature to this beast, and I was hoping to settle some of your concerns. I'm assuming that your family is resting at this point.
He nods.
I think Duke will move the briefcase up to the table.
You slide it off the kitchen, off of next to you, and kind of, gently put it on the table. We can hear the switches of both the briefcase slapping open before Duke rolls open the top of the briefcase.
I return to him the file, a manila folder.
As you slide it back to him, he fingers through it for a moment before looking back up to you. Were you able to discover anything?
I wanted to talk with you first about this. This is a very interesting case that you brought to the table, and I was hoping that you might bring to light some things that might stir up a remembrance, if you will. What is this about, particularly?
Mr. Preman, I'm simply trying to close out cold cases my father wasn't able to finish, to complete his legacy as it should be.
Very well. Luther, how long can you recall that I've known you?
I feel like I've known you my whole life at this point.
Yes. Can you recall every time we've met?
I mean, not every time. It'd be hard to.
Do you see any correlations or patterns with our fortuitous meetings?
I mean, yeah, okay, occasionally. It seems that we cross paths just when needed, for your sake or for mine.
Good. What did your father ever say about me?
He had the utmost trust in you for some reason. You helped him along his career. Said you'd make a damn fine detective yourself. Never understood why you didn't.
Your father was a good man, and it still pains me to hear that he is suffering from dementia and the like. It's not entirely why I'm here, though. I wanted to discuss with you about this case.
Yes.
There are some correlations, some patterns that I feel like can be brought to the table, but I wanted first to hear what and or whom you thought this might be.
I have a lot of theories.
Well, table them here, please. I'm interested.
He spins the manila envelope back toward you and slides it back in front of you. Particularly, I think, if you want to just cut the bullshit, I have my hunch it's you. I wouldn't have come to this case initially, except the man sitting in prison, rotting away at a ripe old age of, what is he, in his 70s at this point? Edmund Kemper is his name. Weird. Somebody claiming to be a relative of his says it was a lie. He never did it. It happens a lot in this, right? People whose family never truly believe the crimes of the ones that are put behind bars, but something about this woman just seemed authentic. I did a little digging. Saw some pictures she gave me. They seemed to match rather well with the man sitting in prison, but you see, when I talked to him, and I interviewed him a couple of times, he admitted to everything. Said he did all the killings, but the correlation to when he supposedly committed those murders and where he was at the time don't always line up. I'm not saying we put an entirely innocent man behind bars. I don't have enough evidence for that. But it is bizarre with what my father has told me in the past and the bits and pieces I can put together and your consistent visits. I have my suspicions. And this was a cold case that fit profile of the killer in the prison. But it was one of the few that couldn't find the evidence on. The body was never found, but the man had enough murders pinned to him that life plus was almost a guarantee at that point anyway, so cold case was left cold. I think the reason they didn't find the evidence is because the man who told them where the body was didn't actually know.
You pieced a few things together, and I think that it's time you've learned some truths. Then we can paint more of this picture and attach the conspiracy board in various places. I'd often wondered when this would come to be, and your father, he was a very keen man, Luther, and I think that he had known, but that he had avoided it. You said the name Edmund Kemper. It was the 70s. And before I go into too many of the details, that man that's sitting in prison right now, he is in fact a serial killer. It was from my own studies that he was placed there. Someone who was important to me gave me the option to place someone in that position, and I didn't feel it would be it wouldn't be right for me to place someone in that position who didn't rightfully belong there. He went by a moniker called the babysitter. Around the 70s, he was shifted into that position.
So put in prison for crimes not his, but still a man deserving to be put behind bars nonetheless.
He was a murderer. Between 75 and 77. He, as I believed, had killed at least 4, and they went cold.
That still leaves the justice to these ladies. Now, not given.
See, I spoke to someone before I came here this evening about what it was that I was to do, and they had suggested that I become forthright and lay all my cards on the table. Open up, if you will. I'm not a very forthcoming man, Luther.
You don't damn say.
Let me explain to you. I was arrested April 24th, 1973. I was standing in a phone booth in Pueblo, Colorado, and alerted the authorities in Santa Cruz as to the situation. See, I was at the end of my rope and was never entirely sure what was going to happen next. Absolute compulsions are the damnedest things. You see, Luther, I was cognitively aware of my compulsions, and the attempts to dissuade myself failed with unabashed consistency. And science, well, behind the understanding of the mind, hadn't come far enough to assist in forming proper parameters for control. I'd become cognitively aware of my remorse, but was never apologetic for what had occurred, as I was taken by an unfettered passion. This, though, now, I am lifetimes different. At least 10 lifetimes. At least. And it was no surprise that Edmund was consistently referred to as a psychopath. Despite the actions, I made no attempts to rationalize the behavior. I don't make excuses. I knew there were consequences for those actions and that they were always on the table, but I lacked the ability to control. I knew that I was at the end of my rope, and something had to change before it became an actual circus. I knew in proper confinement that the stimulus would be non-existent, and the existing compulsions would dwindle to nothing. And if I were to be released, I would kill again. I was where I needed to be. My new home was nestled comfortably between caged primal fear and 8 concurrent life sentences at the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, California. And then life took a drastic turn. I was met with someone that took my life and changed me. Enough to discover a new normal. And I sit before you, Luther, and 73 years old.
Looking like you're my goddamn age.
Yes. Yes.
That I haven't figured the fuck out yet. Good screen, maybe you got good cream care.
Huh.
Permanent Botox.
Well, I could tell you, but you won't believe it. I could show you, and it might make a believer out of you. But I only tell you these things because I've only ever had the utmost respect for your father, and in turn, you. And I don't expect you to forgive me of my grievances. Hell, I opted in for the death penalty, but at that time in California, they removed capital punishment. Do you want to see, Luther, why I've stayed so young?
I'll be honest with you, I'm confused as shit.
Yeah, I expected as much. This is fine. You see, just please peer upward at my teeth.
His eyes go from your eyes down to your lips.
And I'll kind of push back the lips and allow my teeth to expose.
As the fangs kind of crawl forth from the gums, there's a genuine look of horror for a moment, followed by confusion, and then almost he composes himself. That's a hell of a plastic surgery, dude. It's like those people who get their own elf ears.
Something like that, yes.
How does that explain anything other than you're a fucking weirdo?
Well, I suppose we can leave it there. If you'd like to, just call me a fucking weirdo.
He shakes his head. How does pointy teeth explain you being 73 years old? I don't understand. You got some sweet plastic surgery.
Allow me to lament. Are you familiar with vampires? Let's just keep this as simple in broader terms.
He shrugs. Yeah, who ain't? Is that like you're a big fan? Is that why you got the fangs?
Let's accept for a moment that vampires are real. Would you still suggest that this is simply interesting plastic surgery, a cosmetics job?
My first instinct is to give you the number of the mental hospital.
I extend my hand across the table. Go on. Touch my skin.
He reaches forward and touches your very cold skin. My mom had bad circulation, man.
Across their entire body?
He kind of briefly touches your hand before looking back up to you.
If you have a thermometer, I can continue these mild provings.
You got a pulse there, Mr. Vampire?
Please. Kind of roll up the sleeves, turn down the neck.
He will actually reach forward and grab your wrist and kind of position his thumb where a pulse should be. And you feel him move it a couple times and then kind of lets go. Your arm being much bigger than his hands. Maybe he thinks he can't find it or something. And so he goes over to you where you're sitting down. And he starts pressing around on your neck before he pulls away. Oh, that's weird.
Unnerving, right?
He very quietly sits back around the chair. All right. You don't gotta. Okay.
No pulse. Interesting dentures, if you will, for satisfying your bigger take. Cold to the touch. Ooh, I can think of something. Something mild. I'm going to shift your purview of the room in the way that you think of me. I'm not going to do much. just note that this fear is something that I can will.
And what do we watch Duke do?
I'm going to use Daunt. It's a level 1 power.
Cool. So it should be no rouse check for it then.
Correct.
You simply intimidate him to draw fear. So we watch as Duke simply stares at Luther for a moment. The room around Luther is seen from, as Duke said, his perspective. Everything in the camera shot seems to get just slightly darker, less vibrant. But Duke stays as bright and focused as ever. Luther cannot pull his gaze away necessarily from Duke, though he may try. And you can see tiny little beads of sweat begin to form at the very tip of his hairline. Does Duke say anything, or does he just simply sit there?
He waits. He just lets this sit in the heaviness of the room just sort of linger for a while.
The tension only rises as the room seems to get darker, and the camera seems to only focus more and more on the expressionless Duke as he simply stares across the table at Luther, as the sweat clearly now dripping down his forehead through his eyebrows. You can see him as his eyes get wider and his pupils dilate a little further. The tension gets to a point where he could scream or break at any moment if you were to say the wrong thing or give him the wrong nudge. You allow the tension to rise that high before Duke ends it.
How are you feeling, Luther? Silence is rather deafening, wouldn't you say?
He looks to try and speak, but as his mouth opens, you can almost hear the dryness of his mouth as he opens, and there's an urge there, and it looks like he's going to say something before he purses his lips again.
I compel him.
What do you say?
Who do you think I am, and what do you think I am, Luther?
I think you're the killer. I don't know what the fuck you are.
Very well. What would it take to convince you of this? Or are you satisfied simply knowing that I was once a murderer?
Still continuing to compel him. What would convince you of this? It seems to be stuck on his tongue for a moment, clearly not able to formulate a full thought. I'm fine knowing you're just a killer.
I release Daunt.
And as you do so, you watch as his shoulders drop, and he brings his arm up and he just kind of pats his head, and he quickly stands up, reaches nearby into a nearby drawer as it slides open. He pulls a pistol before leveling it at you. Get out of my house.
Luther.
I don't know what the fuck you are. I don't know what the fuck just happened to me.
I do have something that can prove these things. No longer innocuous bits. May I stand?
He doesn't reply, but I imagine Duke slides the chair out as he asks and stands. He does not shoot you, does not pull the trigger, however, he leaves the gun leveled at you.
I'm going to walk very carefully, like hands sort of up at the hips, over to any of the immediate pull-out drawers for like a silverware drawer.
Sure. Yeah, the kitchen is I mean, you're sitting in the kitchen, so you walk over to the little bar area where there's cabinets, and you slide out a drawer, and you can hear the jangle of the silverware before you reach in and pull. What do you pull? A fork, a spoon, a knife?
A knife. Nothing crazy, nothing that's super sharp, just enough to cause a gash across like a finger.
Sure.
I do so, and I sort of flinch some of the blood forward from the finger, trying to expose this.
Mm-hmm. And you do so, and this thick vitae crawls forth from the small wound you instilled on your finger before. I imagine you bring it up close to him, and you allow him to watch it.
Would you argue that I successfully cut my finger?
Yeah, I'd argue that.
And I'll lip away some of the blood and lick at the wound and rub it for a moment and just slowly let it begin to heal with its quickened healing.
And he watches, and you can see the cut in the wound begin to kind of push itself together, and his eyes go from the wound up to you confusedly, back to the wound, back up to your eyes, before back to the wound once more, and staying there before the wound fully heals. The gun never leaves its train on you. He looks back to you when the wound's healed, and he kind of just mutters, almost more for him to himself than to you, though it is audible. What the fuck are you?
I simply wish to be an ally.
Did my father know?
Your father was...
Did Dad know about you?
I don't think he ever quite knew what I was, but I think your father knew who I was the entire time. People have a way of changing and reforming. I never found my way in life. It was only in unlife that I discovered my path, Luther, and I found a way to quell my compulsions.
You watch as he tries to take it all in. He can't break his gaze from you, and yet, even though he stares at you, it's though he's staring through you more than anything. A few moments pass before the gun's still not off of you. He actually kind of comes to, blinking a few times. You need to get out.
Very well.
He'll follow you to the back door, and as you leave, and he shuts it behind you, and you hear the deadbolt lock, though it would do nothing should you wish to even enter. You can watch his silhouette quickly kind of panic over to the table, and you see him very quickly gathering the documents, and before long, with a hurried walk, he speeds up the out to another room, out of sight entirely. And Duke stands in the backyard for a moment, watching all of it, taking in his response to it all. And as Duke sits and watches and stares at the family through the windows, the camera will sit behind him, quietly, as Duke takes in his movements, learning, perhaps, as he panics and pulls things, that there may have been something that gotten through to him. The camera will slowly fade to black, and will return next week with a new episode. Goodbye, everybody.